This episode of Scab Talk is brought to you by Lethal Gaming Gear. And welcome back to Scab Talk, everyone. Today's episode will be catching you up on the Tarkov news that we do have for you this week, followed by Meme or Meta. This time we'll be debating about the MPX. We'll see where that discussion leads us. DRAM is surprisingly dumb, I have learned, which I will probably share bits and pieces. 37% more FPS with this.
Oh.
That's crazy. Can't wait to see what that's going to be. Deadlock, might do some yapping about that if we got time towards the end, followed by GrayZone Night Ops. Giga was able to fully investigate the video from last week, so he's got some details to share with us all.
And I reckon we probably will have time to talk about these things because this week, nothing has happened. Nothing's happened at all. I actually feel like it feels to me almost like the lowest ebb that Tarkov gets, if you know what I mean right now. Like, and just in the way that things have worked out, because it's like short wipe, like stuff's broken. You know, we talked last week about Lightkeeper's broken. You can't progress in any arena tasks like between the two different games. There's just like tons of stuff that doesn't work. So the impetus to play is like really low. And then because the zombies event happened, people played the zombies event quite strongly. It was very, it was as popular as it was unpopular. So like a bunch of people played it a lot. But then after that, it feels like, because there's nothing else, the game just feels kind of like a bit empty, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, we've got, it's autumn season in Tarkov, but other than that, it's like we're maybe 4 weeks away from a wipe, and people are thinking, well, what's there to go in for now? Do you know what I mean? So we're kind of done with this season of EFT. So
added acceleration of arena, namely all the new quests that have been injected.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just like super, super low ebb. And then when there's very little actual stuff, because I was looking back through just thinking like, what's actually happened? Because I've been a bit disengaged just simply because I ended up, I can't remember which day it was that I ended up like not streaming. Yeah, so I didn't stream Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was away at an event on Wednesday evening, but it was down in London. So by the time I managed to get back, so I got a cracking deal. I managed to get the train there and back for £35, which is very, very cheap these days. Because it's like random midweek, like super off-peak trains. Like if you go at any like normal time, it's like 100 and something. It's like over £100 to go, which is like pretty obnoxious, right? It's like $150 equivalent to go on the train back and forth to London from where I am, which is like annoying. So I was like, oh, this is very cost effective. So let's just do it. And it was good, actually. It was good to go. But by the time I got back, I'm on like a disjointed line, and there was a delay, obviously. And I managed to, it was actually the most frustrating kind of thing ever. I was coming into platform 7. The train I needed was platform 6. And literally, they were also delayed by like 3 minutes or something. And so as we pulled in, the other train was literally there on the same platform, just the other side. And as the doors opened to my train, that train disappeared off down the track and left. And I was just like, could they not have waited 30 seconds? Like, we were literally on the same platform. Like, come on. Like, it was late anyway. So I had to wait an extra 9 minutes for the next one. But that one was 50 minutes because it was the local service, not the 30-minute like direct one. So I was just like, God, like another half hour. So I ended up being quite, well, it just took a long time to get back. And I was just like, well, I'm like, I'll be halfway through stream or whatever. I'll just like do some other stuff and just chill or whatever. Like it's a good time to kind of take time if you're gonna take time. So yeah, it wasn't too bad. And like I was down there, like we were just talking about it before. It was an event with Shure, the people who do microphones and sound equipment and stuff like that. And it was like they were launching. It was like a gaming event for the product launch of the MV6, which is one of their newer USB mics. And I actually used the MV5. So I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting because it's like the follow. Although to be fair, this thing's archaic. Like they've had this thing out for a million years. And it was good to go because I was like, I like their stuff and it's cool. Met some interesting people and, potential sponsors, staff, whatever. It's like, it's useful just commercially anyway. And so it's a good time to go and do this when you're not really like missing out, like making videos from like a business perspective anyway. So that was good and worthwhile. And but yeah, I did get missed out on anything really. Like the only thing they did was install a matchmaker while I was away. That was on. That was that literally yesterday. That was like the 21st. So they installed this thing, and then it was supposed to start at 7 in the morning, go on until for 6 hours. So that was until 1, which is usually my stream start. But then loads of people were just like, I can't even get in.
Classic.
Um, and people had like 15-minute matching time. I think I saw Velian post about it. It's like, yeah, huge matching time. And then there's, we know about the problems and they had to fix the problems or whatever. And some of the guys in Discord were just like, oh, it's a great time to like skip the stream because you literally would have just like sat there for 2 hours not being able to play. And then, oh, it's time to finish the stream now. So, yeah. So, it's going to be interesting to see like how much better that is. Some people are saying that it's quite good now. So, I don't know. We will see. I've like not had a chance actually to play yet, so I don't know. But
I
yeah,
mean,
when I was looking back through the other stuff, it was just like, sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just gonna say 6 hours sounds promising. Like,
Yeah, like the patches take a long time now. They're like 6 to 8 hours, no matter what they do. It seems,
mm.
they change the color of the background of one item, and it's just like no 8 hours downtime. It's like it's just like the number of things that they have to touch now. Because I wonder whether it was. I wonder whether they did arena as well. I can't remember whether they did that too, or whether the arena one is just as is. I don't know. I'm not sure. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I was looking back just through what was popular in the last week or two, whatever, and it's basically just like the tail end of the zombie stuff, and then
Mm-hmm.
people being excited about like the woods bunker and like the woods area, and that's kind of it. That's like the recent things that have happened.
Yeah,
It's been pretty light. Yep,
that's how it
been
goes around
pretty
this
light.
time. But doesn't mean we don't have news updates and kind of tangentially related to Tarkov. But I guess just like the one little bit of Nikita leak that I saw this week was Adidas pants slash sneakers. Not really too sure what exactly Nikita's cooking here, but maybe
Yeah,
it's a update to the tracksuit. I actually, now that I look at it a little closer, I do notice some little like buttons on the shoelaces, and one looks like a Killa or Tagilla helmet. And I can't make out what that one is on the right. And then there's like almost a purple looking one on the top. Maybe that's a emissary. What's the purple icon in game? It's like a purple globe for
yeah.
emissaries.
I think that's the emissary one because the Sherpa one is the
Yeah, the
shaking
green
hands
hand.
screen one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At least, I mean, that's what I think those are. It could also be a Tagilla helmet with like red reindeer ears. I don't know if you're seeing that on the screen. Like it's very
huh.
tiny. I have to like pull it up in Photoshop and blow it up 400%. Analyze, enhance,
Yeah. I don't
zoom.
even know. Like on the screen that I've got you on, I was just like, could barely see it anyway. Are you going to blow it up for us?
Yeah, we have the
Put it in paint.
technology. We have the
Put it in
technology.
paint.
All right. No, thank you. See what I mean? It looks kind of
Oh, it's the
reindeery.
Gilla mask. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely Tagilla mask, the Obey one, I think. And then that almost looks like a Santa hat, no?
yeah, it does a bit.
So I
That's
don't
really
know.
strange.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm assuming that's what the focal point of this is the shoes.
Hmm.
Because the track pants really aren't anything new, right? I mean, unless they're showing
Yeah,
off. Look at these new polygons. Look how smooth these wrinkles and folds are.
that's
Killa
cool. And
Santa,
I mean,
yeah,
it's
I could
hard.
see that.
We don't even know yet if it's like is this player gear? I assumed it was player gear, but it also could
Mm-hmm.
be. I mean, I guess if it's got that much detailing, I originally thought like, oh, maybe, it could be a boss or it could be whatever. But if it's got like detailing like that, it's probably gonna be player gear because you wouldn't just put that on, killer's shoes
Yeah,
without giving it to player. Surely,
yeah. It's just the big question mark for me is why the seasonal stuff. I mean, BSG loves doing that type of
yeah.
stuff, right? Maybe it's like a temporary thing, and then who knows? But anyways, that was really kind of it for Nikita slash BSG dev stuff, unless you saw anything else that I might have missed from this week.
Not not hugely. The only one that I saw was Mr. Very Bad Scav reporting on some people having certain videos been taken down, copyright strikes on like SPT VR.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, the conversation keeps popping back up every now and then about SPT because there's kind of like, I don't know, two layers that happen each time anything comes up about this, where it's like, oh, but Nikita gave clean permission, right? And it's just like, they like during the Unheard Edition blow up, they kind of didn't really have much choice, right? They were undergoing so much backlash, they couldn't have done anything else at that stage, I don't think, and they just were trying to mitigate it as best as possible. So they were just like, whatever, like if Clean's going to stream this stuff, and so be it. But the thing is that they didn't give blanket approval to everybody, and they never did. And so people
Well,
who have
didn't
posted that content have been running that risk.
didn't you say, or I thought I remember Nikita going out and or Pestilli asking Nikita. I thought I remember something like this, or maybe Clean just said on stream, like Nikita said it's fine. Like I thought I remember something like this
I
happening.
think he asked him, but I don't think he ever. I don't think they ever confirmed it. Not as far as I remember.
Okay.
Not as far as I remember. Like my understanding of the whole situation was that there was never any official word given from BSG that people could stream SPT.
Okay.
Whatever. It was only Clean. It was only ever Clean.
Streamer privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even then, it's like, did he even, was it one of the cases where he begged for forgiveness later, or he asked for permission first?
I think he actually asked him.
Okay.
I think, if I remember correctly. I mean, it's all a bit of a blur now. It was a long time ago, but
yeah.
I think he actually asked him. But anyway, regardless of that, right? Like I'm pretty sure that nobody was ever given permission except for Clean that one time, and people did just start posting stuff, but you know, people are running the risk that at some point BSG are known to strike stuff as well. So it's not even like you're kind of just like gambling, oh, will they, won't they, or they've never done it before. It's like BSG strike things on YouTube. That's what they do that when they don't like stuff. There's a certain threshold and it's unknown what that threshold is. And over that threshold, they will take your stuff down. And the issue is that, you know, on YouTube, if you get 3 things taken down, your channel gets deleted, literally gets deleted, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? It's like, but it's one of the biggest risks. I mean, you know, if you're doing it part-time as a hobby or whatever, then it doesn't really matter so much. But like, obviously it's annoying still. But it's like one of the biggest risks that you run as a YouTuber is
that's
3
when you
strikes and the whole channel's gone.
That's when you get a takedown request, right? Or is
correct, which is what this is.
Yeah. Whereas
exactly,
there's you can get copyright claimed, which doesn't.
Yes, good point.
It's not part of that.
It's a good distinction to make, right? So like you could put up a piece of content and there's someone else's content in there and they do nothing. There's someone else's content in there, they get notified and they copyright claim you. That doesn't give you a strike or any like naughty points or anything. It just takes the money from the video and gives it to them. So it's annoying, but it doesn't actually do anything to your channel. It's just like the money just gets rerouted to the IP holder, and it's very brutal. Like, 'cause this all came from the music thing in the first place, right? It's like all came from the music situation years ago. I can't remember what they're called. The big music
MGG
association. It's like something AA, something AA. I can't remember what the acronym. It's like a 4-letter acronym. And anyway, all of those big groups, they just had a fit at one point, and the only way that YouTube could solve that problem was by aggressively remonetizing the IP holders. So it's like, even if somebody uses like 6 seconds of a song in a 30-minute video, it's like all the revenue goes to the content, like the IP holder, which is just like, it's crazy. It's super like skewed, but that's just the way it is. And so, yeah, a lot of the time people just like claim the money, but they're also well within their right to strike and take down stuff. It's like, if you own a song and then somebody uses it on a video you don't you don't agree with the content of the video or whatever, you don't want your song being associated with that, you can get the video taken down, and that's what that's about, really. So then like the next thing is always just like, oh, and I think even Very Bad Scab says like he said he put it on a comment. He was like, "Oh yeah, BSG has rights. However, taking down videos using copyright is abusing the system." Which, I mean, technically speaking, I don't think is true, because anything with Tarkov footage in it is BSG's IP, actually, and so you can
Yeah.
they could take down anything they like, and if they wanted to, they could take down the entire. Like, it's not in their interest, right? But they could take down the entirety of Tarkov YouTube if they wanted.
Which is
And I think
just
all games companies could, which is mad, but
yeah, I mean that's kind of the I mean if, I yeah, like you're exactly right, they're well within their rights. 'Cause I think it's even in the end user agreement, and that's kind of how these things work is, you don't own Escape from Tarkov when you buy it. You just own a license to use the product, if you will. But you don't actually
yeah,
own anything, despite it, how that works. But just legally speaking, you don't own it. And part of that is like, they reserve the right to, you know, do X, Y, and Z. It's like the purpose is to protect, their IP from theft. But I I do think BSG. I don't know some of the things they do. I mean, of course, there was the whole situation with a couple YouTubers, like namely Erotic, way back in the day, with like negative hype and that whole debacle. I won't really bring up the history there, but they've had a track record of doing this, and like you said, the line isn't particularly clear. SPT
mm,
videos, I do tend to see get targeted. I'm not sure about nowadays, which of course, this is in relationship to an SPT trailer, like a mod for SPT, and that being VR. Like someone got like VR working in Tarkov, which is funny because one of my friends saw a video about it and he was like, I think I could, he was like watching it, was like, oh, that's how they do that, because he's pretty big into VR, and so he was like, ooh, this I might have to look into this. This could be fun. But
mm,
anyways, I do feel like you know I don't know. It just, to me, it feels like they're really. It's a bit like how Nintendo does things. If you know anything about Nintendo, it's like anything with their IP on it, they're just like, yeah, let's go ahead and just nuke that real quick, which is crazy to me. I think maybe they've like. I'm not actually sure. It'd be interesting to know some of the, because you're really talking about differences in culture and business. My understanding, there's a big like I'll scratch if you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back type of thing with like
yeah,
these, like Nintendo, because like Nintendo and Sony had like a big falling out way back in the day when PlayStation One. Anyways, so there's a lot of like how that plays in of international. YouTube is kind of like U.S. laws. I don't know. It's all very muddy. But point being, I the only logical, like, for me, it's got to be money related. Like they, you know what I mean? Like there's, for them to like go out of their way of doing this, presumably having someone that they're paying to do this, like a dedicated position. Um,
yes,
and like why, I assume it just comes down to money. It's like I don't know what other. The only other thing I could think of is like they don't want people seeing things in Tarkov that aren't actually a part of the package. Like
yeah,
someone might just go and buy, like, I mean, like maybe loosely I could see that, but I still feel like that's a stretch.
yeah. They kind of want to just like control the information space around the game, so people only see the official version. I can sort of see that, but yeah, I don't know. It's always felt
Negative
a bit
hype.
short-sighted, right? Yeah. It's
That
always
is
just felt a bit
perfected.
short-sighted, and kind of like people are going to see this stuff. If people are interested, they'll find this stuff anyway, right? So there's no point in trying to censor it. But yeah, there's actually there's a TLDR on Very Bad Scouts video under the bit I read before, where he basically just said, "What is happening? BSG don't allow SPT. BSG drops PV mode for only $250 edition. Gets big backlash. Allows SPT content. Backlash fades away. Start striking SPT videos.
Yeah. Sounds. I don't know. This
Mm.
one's just weird though, because I mean, did the video get a lot of views or something? Is that why? Oh, I guess you can't even find
Uh,
out because you have to do like a Wayback Machine, huh?
yeah, you can't find out. I wonder if because he had the video here, or at least he was looking at it. I think he's got it in like full screen, so I
Yeah, it
can't
says
actually
video
see.
unavailable. Video is no longer available due to copyright claim by Battlestate Games Limited because
Oh, and
he had it linked on a different the original video that he did on the
yeah,
23rd. There's the trailer. I'm guessing the trailer video got some traction.
I guess so.
Um, and I don't know. I mean,
Uh,
I don't really know. Just trying to make sense of it. And I just can't really wrap my head around it, other than it probably comes down to money. It's just like they're at the end of the day, they're a business. So like, mm,
yeah, I guess like thing is they used to do it in the past. They're actually more incentivized to do it now because now they they weren't really competing before, right? Because like Escape from Tarkov, actual and SPT delivered very different things to people.
yeah, that's true.
Whereas now people actually own the PVE mode
The
and they are
gap
actually now
has closed
competing
a
in the
bit.
same market.
Yeah,
Exactly. And a couple of people who came into stream the other day, and I was like actually fascinated because they were saying, "Oh, I'm like kind of new, but I'm mainly playing PVE for like my first wipe." And I mean, I drilled down into a little bit more on this person. It turned out they'd bought the game ages ago, but never really played it, and so they actually did have a EOD. But I'm sure there's some people who go to play it and then go, "Oh, I could play the PVE mode." Like I know I have a friend who actually not part of like my main friend group, but like he might actually buy PVE because he did get Tarkov and is just like, oh, I just like never had time for it properly. But I think he probably would play PVE. So that's the thing. There's like
yeah.
genuine people out there who will be looking for this kind of thing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so you can see why they may be more incentivized than they have been in the past. Although in the past they did also block it. So I don't know. Like, it's weird, right? Because like their stance has changed and actually they're probably less hardcore now than they were about this stuff. They were like super, because they were like really very like cut and dried about it in the past. Ever since they became more responsive, and then they had the blow up. Like BSG changed a little bit, but then now they've actually financially incentivized to block it. So it's like we've kind of ended up in the same place for different reasons, almost. So who knows what happens from here? I mean, I think a lot of people just don't bother putting up this kind of thing. I was
Yeah,
talking with some people about testing stuff. And there's some people who are like, looking into some of these kinds of things to do testing. And I was like, just, yeah, maybe this stuff is sort of interesting, but like, remember, I can't use any of this stuff, right? Like, if you do actually manage to do anything, I can't use any of this. Like, there's no chance. And they're like, oh, really? I'm going to invoke the wrath of the gods. Like, I can't.
yeah,
There's no way. They're like, oh yeah, of course, of course. And I think like people forget. But like people forget BSG's stance actually sometimes. Partly because SPD's got so large and the community's so active and whatnot. Um, so yeah, it's a good reminder that they still are touchy. Let's
hmm
say.
yeah. And I'm also just a little bit. I mean, generally skeptical about things, but specifically a little bit more skeptical about BSG's statement about sort of embracing the SPT into the Tarkov umbrella in the future, where you can, just
Mm.
like I could see like a mod page in the launcher or in the menu, and you go there and it's like a browser, storefront,
Mm.
and um, but I don't know because I'm thinking like probably the mod developers want to be able to some of them are going to want to be able to like monetize their work, you know,
Yeah.
which typically is done through like donations. and like how are you gonna how are you gonna make basically a storefront, and then like how are BSG gonna make money off this? It's like it's like, I mean, I guess they could do it out of the goodness of their hearts, sure, but I just the way they've like treated SP, especially like some of the things Nikita said. So, because you said like, yeah, we're gonna go after them or something like in the past. I remember him being,
Mm.
very, I don't know. So I just find that kind of, it would be really cool, and like it would be in a utopia if you could like please the players, please BSG, please the mod developers. It's just like one perfect marriage, but it's probably not going to be like that. I think even Valve did something like this of like Dota 2 mods at one
Oh,
point. Do you remember that? Like the arcade?
yeah, actually, but that's not. Well, they sort of exist now. It's not like it was though. Wasn't there something about monetization where
There
like
was,
people
but
were
I don't
monetizing
remember
through?
how.
Yeah, it was something to do with the fact that people were monetizing through the arcade, and
Mm-hmm.
Valve were like no monetizing through the arcade store or whatever. Like that's it. Nothing could be monetized through
Oh,
here,
yeah, because
and they just like killed it.
I bet that gets Valve into a lot of hot water, because then it's like microtransactions within a game, but isn't licensed through, or I say
Maybe.
licensed, it isn't like actually Valve
I know
officially.
what you mean.
I don't know, but yeah, and I wouldn't
Yeah, I
want,
don't actually know.
yeah, and I wouldn't want that, like, Tarkov Realism Edition 9.99. Then you go in, it's like, it's like the hardest version of the game ever, and it's like, have Pepper comes to you, having a hard time with like an AK and a price tag floating. It's like you just get these
The actual
notifications
realism mod.
constantly. Yeah,
You go to work and then you make money and you come back and you spend it on the realism mod. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know. No, I do remember that one time when he was just like, we're coming for SPT, we're gonna crack
yeah.
down. Like, I mean, nothing really happened in the end, but
Not that I know of,
I can't remember the
anyways.
exact timing on that. Yeah, not that we know of. Maybe it did. I mean, I'm not part of that scene, so
Hmm.
maybe things did happen under the surface. You never can
Yeah.
tell. Tricky.
So I don't know. I mean, I just, at the end of the day, you know, it's not really anything super significant in my mind. It was just kind of like atypical BSG behavior. We'll see what the future holds, but I generally think, like, generally and genuinely think that what the two offerings, SPT versus single player, I think they're, you know there's probably some crossover, but I think for a lot of people, they don't like want to mess around with that SPT specifically, because it's like, a little bit techy. It's
Yeah.
not just like, it's not click a button and you're good to go. It's click lots of buttons and read lots of stuff.
hmm
you know.
Yeah, it's not just like, oh, spt.exe, just double click this and like follow the
Right.
wizard, right? Like it's not the
Right.
same. So there's two groups of people who want an offline experience. One who just wants to boot up the launcher and play the game, and the other who's like willing to put in the time and effort and all of that kind of stuff. It kind of reminds me almost of emulation back in the day. I used to do a
Mm.
lot of emulation, and these days I just can't be bothered because it takes so long.
Yeah,
And
and
like I,
it's
that's the thing. I'm definitely in the camp of just like I just want it to work through the launcher. Like I just don't have time in
exactly.
my life for that stuff. Whereas like, you know, 15 years ago, I'd have been like writing my own stuff for it, like pouring through forums for things or whatever. So like, yeah, there's definitely different use cases.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised, because plus two, you got, you know, the better, well, I say better, like faster delivery of content. If like SPT, you gotta wait X amount of time, unknown time, for the latest official Tarkov updates to reach the SPT stuff, and then you gotta wait up for all the mod developers to update their mods if you update, and it's,
Mm.
you get all the kind of like scary, spooky, nebulous stuff about, SPT and BSG's feelings on it. So I don't know. I think they're
Yeah.
kind of, again, I don't, it's really hard to wrap my mind around why BSG. feels so presumably threatened or whatever by
Mm.
this, but whatever.
Yeah, exactly. In in other in other extraction shooter genre themed news of companies doing funny stuff, I did see a tweet out from one peg. I know, like Arena Breakout. I think they're just releasing their first season very soon or something. They're like bringing out the actual first season. It's not like the game's not released still. They're still beta or whatever. But apparently they did a campaign with a bunch of creators, and then halfway through they were like, "Oh, actually, we're just like not going to do this anymore. So we're just not going to pay you now,"
This
which is
and
like,
this is like through Twitch as well. Is that what I'm gathering?
I think so. I think so. So it's like, so yeah, something you had to stream a bunch of hours. I mean, I was not involved with this, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Um, as I said to church before, I still can't get over the monetization model personally. It's the deal breaker for me. So they've asked me twice to do stuff now, and I just can't. I just don't want to. I'm not like I'm also not seriously going to play the game. I think like I'd rather play Delta Force. Right, they've been a lot more. I mean, they're further back in the development process, but they've been a lot more forthcoming about some monetization stuff, at least about not being able to buy currency and yada yada yada. But um, and I personally think it's a more interesting game as well.
Yeah.
But they're not like offering out any of this kind of thing, presumably because they're not monetizing as hard, so they're not making as much, right? So they don't have the funds to advertise. It's this like again, it was something I was talking to church with just before we got started, which is like this strange but very common sense and obvious linkage between, the more predatory the monetization model, the more the more value there is for attracting a new customer.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean,
Yeah.
as far as these things go, I don't think Arena Breakout is actually even anywhere near close to being worse for this kind of stuff. Right? It's just like you could buy rubles in the game or money in the game, whatever it is, Cohen. Like, I don't like it, but it's like it is what it is. Whereas something like you're like Raid Shadow Legends and some of these other like mobile game, like proper like mobile games that are like serious like dark pattern creators to like lure people in, get them addicted over multiple days, playing like one type of game, and then actually now you have to do this or that, or the other, or it becomes difficult for some reason. But those are the ones that are always looking out for people to do stuff, and they like pay really well because, and it's like the more toxic the monetization model, the more they will pay. It's like, I don't know, kind of kind of interesting in some ways. Actually, probably for people who are kind of on the fence about Delta Force, probably should lighten the soul, knowing that I don't think they're really doing any campaigns with creators and whatever. It's just kind of word of mouth, and people actually do seem to like the game. So we'll see. The jury's out. But anyway, yeah, this was another another classic, another classic one. I mean, again, we're just taking one book's word for it because I have got no skin in the game on this one,
Mm-hmm.
but doesn't seem great. I've kind of avoided since the monetization model got released, and looks like maybe that was a good idea. I don't know.
Yeah, as I was telling you, I feel like I would care more if I actually like cared about the game, but like I really don't. Like it just didn't seem anything new or interesting. It was just kind of like it basically was like Lost Light but shinier graphics to me, and I just
Mm.
don't really care. So I did see this on my timeline, and I couldn't really get that invested because I just didn't care. So I don't, you know, I don't know because I think there's a line something about they did offer to compensate the advertisers, the streamers at a fraction of the original terms that they canceled. But I don't know, and why they canceled to begin with, don't know. But yeah, I felt like this. I mean, if you like this game, like fine, but like in general, I just
Yeah,
felt like they've had like a lot of controversy and like I don't know. I think there's got to be some other product out there that fulfills very similar aspects. That's probably just better all
yeah,
around. But to each their own.
yeah. I think the issue for me is that it's sort of almost like because it's so close to Tarkov, it's kind of like I'm not. Yeah, I know what they're offering, but it's almost like too close and not different enough for me to want to play it, even if the game's
Yeah.
kind of alright. Like honestly, one of the big deal breakers for me is the recoil system. The fact that they took the same recoil system from Tarkov, like
Oh, really?
pre-rework.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like the same. And that was like one of the big things that I really didn't like, because I was
that's
just like, everybody
interesting.
universally hated it, and like finally managed to get them to change it. But they got the same deal with the up and down spray, which when I going back to it, you're just like, oh, it's like, this feels terrible, right? And it's supposed to be a run and gun, more so run and gun arcadey version, right, of Tarkov. And it's like, well, I don't like the gunplay because we've sat on that style for 5 years. So that combined with the monetization, I'm not like super keen. But I mean, they've got like there was a bunch of the maps that used to only be on the mobile one that they brought through to the PC one. So I haven't played. There's like TV Station and stuff like this. So, if you're into the game, I'm sure it's fun. I'm sure it's fun. And there's like they've got some good ideas, which I think Lost Light may have as well, which is the different tiers. It's like 3 tiers. You have regular, and then there's I can't remember what the name is, but there's like 2 other ones where you have to have a minimum kit to go in, and so
Oh, right.
it's like it's not skill based matchmaking, but it's like voluntary sort of separation, right? Like if you're a noob, you're not going to be playing the restricted zone mode.
It's like,
You're playing the basic one, so you're not going to run into the chads because they're playing like the one with the higher loot, right? And
yeah,
with the buy-in and stuff. So it's like it's quite an interesting way to do it. It's like we
it
actually talked about this
is.
years ago in EFT, being like, oh, you could play different versions of the same map. Like we actually pretty much had this idea, and you see that now in this game. Definitely, I think Delta Force may have this as well, and then definitely Dark and Darker has this too. Cause it's got like high roller lobby, right? So that's the same idea. You play the base game, and then you get to a certain level of power, and you're like, oh, now we go and play the high roller lobby, and it costs money to go in. Better loot, but then there's other people who are also more geared, so it's kind of steps it up. But it's like voluntary, right? You choose when to do that. Whereas
Yeah.
EFT, you know, EFT is just EFT. You don't know whether you're running into level 1 Timmy or whether you're going into level 99 GigaChad. You just have no idea, and that's like part of the
For sure.
just a game. It's just part of the game. But it's interesting seeing a different system. So like, it's definitely not all bad, but yeah, I don't know. There's like a lot of choice now. I think there's more choice than there was before. When this thing was coming out, it was like the only other alternative, and everything was like
Oh,
blowing up.
yeah.
But yeah, someone in chat's made a good point. Labs is kind of a high roller lobby, and that's true because there's a
Yeah, kind
buy-in
of in a
and
way.
you get full of chats, so it's you know
Mm-hmm.
kind of the same deal. Um, that is true to an extent, yeah, for sure. Yep. But I haven't like I know Delta Force they were doing some testing, so I don't even know if it might even still be open, but like just haven't had time. I know a bunch of people. I don't think Jesse would jump back in, was like playing a bit of it then, but I don't think the build was any different. I think it was just like another round of testing. But there's like some cool stuff that they've said in their game that they like added a load of PMC bots and people didn't like it, but I think they needed
Yeah.
it because it was before it went out to like full open release, so there weren't enough people playing because it was like limited access keys. And they've said like they're getting rid of the bots, and they've said you can never buy currency and blah 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 blah. You'll probably still have to pay for something, a secure container or whatever. No one really knows yet, so I don't know. But we'll see. But it's just looks like they're going the right way. It's like every time a new one of these things comes up, somebody hits a landmine of the community, right? And it's like eventually a company's going to be able to navigate the minefield just
Yeah.
watching what everybody else did and
What's
be like, okay,
the
don't do that, don't do this, don't do that.
what is the bare minimum acceptable for this particular market of customers,
yeah, yeah. So we'll see, But I haven't played any more since the like the original test like months ago.
Yeah, I hadn't either. That was kind of our big gripe, was the bots really did suck
Mm.
the life out of the game, because once you went to like the higher role lobbies, it was like super rare to find players, it felt like, and half the time you were fighting bots, and the bots were just like 5 kills in one single bot. Like they were insanely cracked. It was like so like you had the yeah, it was just so unbelievably not fun. And yeah, they've removed it since, but I don't know. I kind of want to like let that game cook a little bit, because I think it was a good game. I just don't know if it's something that I could like see myself getting super invested into. because it is still, very Tarkov esque, with its own like very spin to it. And I do like the hero stuff, the characters and abilities. I think that's like really fun. You could do a lot of fun stuff with that and the compositions and teamwork. But yeah, we'll see how that one pans out.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because I feel like it got a lot of like it almost got backlash on that point in particular because everyone was just like, it's like very trendy to hate on hero shooters because it's kind of been overdone.
Yeah,
But given I'm not like, I don't know, I feel like I didn't really notice that much. I was just like, as long as it's done okay, then I don't really, I'm not like against the whole concept, you know.
yeah.
But I feel like they did get some backlash on that. Yeah, we'll see. It's interesting. And then there's there's Stalker 2 that's just come out. I actually asked Church before. I said, have you played Stalker 2? No, I was like, no, I haven't either. Not yet. So unfortunately, we can't bring you anything about Stalker 2. But I know people have been enjoying it for sure. That it's a bit jank, but that's apparently what the original Stalker experience was like. But yeah, I'm gonna have to pick it up at some point because people have been going on at me for ages about Stalker 1, and you gotta play Stalker 1, and I never got around to it. And now the second one's come out. It's like, okay, can't not now, right? It's like one of the direct inspirations for
Mm-hmm.
Tarkov. So
Mm-hmm.
probably got to go do it at some point, you know. But yeah, don't know. I don't want to like because there's a like high chance that at some point that I will play it. I also don't want to watch anything or see anything about it. So I don't want to spoil anything. I want to just like experience it myself. So that means I can't really be seeing what's happening either or people's experience. I've just seen people talking about some performance stuff and that kind of thing just
Mm.
pops up on Twitter. But yeah, yep.
Ash Rises
Talk.
brings up an interesting point because I've often
Yes.
felt the same way, which is that if you replace hero with classes, a lot of people be appeased because it really is kind of very much like that. I feel like their general like they have a theme and it's like, oh, this is like a sniper character. Like it could just be replaced with.
Yeah.
But I think the reason why it's more hero-y is because they're more marketable and sellable. Like more
Mm.
distinguishable than sort of a generic sniper. It's like, oh, Raven is my code name. Edgelord is my game. You want some jet black hair, $5. It's more I don't know. It's more iconic, more like marketable. I
Yeah, no,
really
it's funny
tickle
because
giggle
it's
with that one.
yeah, that was good. Yeah, because otherwise it's like a battlefieldy type thing, isn't it? Because the first one that I was
Yeah.
thinking of was BattleBit, but then I was like, well, BattleBit's just a copy of Battlefield, and then in
Mm-hmm.
that it's just engineer, medic, whatever. Right? It's just like generic names. But as you say, if you want to be selling cosmetics and things, it's like, oh, you got to have some way of giving your character an arcana with particle effects. So like, how else are we going to do that if they're just called like engineer? You know,
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could still do cosmetics for sure and have that.
you could.
Because I guess like Team Fortress 2 is probably a good example because that kind of like
Good point.
it is classes, but I still feel like they're fairly iconic in that sense.
The OG
Um,
hats game,
I
really.
mean, truly. So, and
Yeah.
then yeah, you got hats in there. So I don't know. It's interesting because but then again, I do feel like engineer versus um, I don't know, like Wraith from Apex Legends. Like Wraith just like design wise. I mean, TF2's
Yeah.
got its own art style, of course, but like it just feels like one stands out a lot more. Is a bit more iconic or a bit more I don't know, marketable. But like I'm
Yeah,
in
I guess
a
so. Maybe because it's almost like I always thought that Wraith was almost like trying a bit hard. You know what I mean?
oh
There's
yeah,
like
for
definitely an
sure.
element for that
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, it's just like you're so like skull emblem on
Yeah.
everything, kind of like this. Like, oh goodness, you know. Whereas like, but that's kind of and that was kind of the charm of TF2 in many ways because it's
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, everyone looks like they're made out of plasticine or something along those
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
It's a very smooth art style,
Mm-hmm.
like very different, as opposed to just being like super try hard, which a lot of these things are.
Yeah.
And Delta Force is too to some extent, right? Like
Yeah.
it's also
Yeah.
super try hard. Like that's what makes it a hero shooter, I guess, because they're like
Mm-hmm.
hero characters that are just kind of like a little bit cringy as opposed to, I'm an engineer, I'm a medic, and whatever.
Yeah, it's really
So,
that sort of blend of realism, photogenic. Whereas like with something like TF2, you kind of really have this art style, very iconic look to it. And of course, that all gets elevated by the community because, like, Source Filmmaker, I've probably seen so many. Like, I've played
mm,
so little TF2, but like, I've just seen so much Source. I've probably seen way more community made stuff than never played the game.
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, had a good community back then.
Mm.
But yeah. Okay, right. Well, that was an interesting. We've skipped through like every possible game there in about 2 minutes. Which way do you want to go? Do you want to go DRAM or do you want to go FPS? Which way? We've got a fork in the road here.
I think go DRAM. Let's
I don't know what
see.
this is going to be about.
Yeah, oh man, I was messing about with trying to troubleshoot my PC because I was getting an issue in Deadlock where my monitor would go black. And it was really
Oh,
annoying. Yeah, it was really annoying because then, the monitor like basically shuts off. And so what happens is the game goes to the second monitor, but because it's trying to fit a 1440p resolution onto a 1080p, it gets like cut off. And then so I power back on the monitor and then it goes back to the main monitor, but now the resolution's like all scaled and screwed up. And when I hit escape to go to the options menu, there is no options. It's just like deleted from existence. Like there's still exit game, but like options is like right above it is just gone. I'm like, what? So I have to shut down the game, pause the game, disconnect, and then reconnect. And it happens, like maybe once every other game. And I just like, okay, so I was like, lower the GPU clock. Okay, lower the maximum frame rate. Like what's causing this? And so the other thing I noticed from that was watching my frame times, like the frame pacing rather. Um, I was noticing I was getting like micro stutters, and
right.
they weren't like noticeable. I mean, I was running like a constant 144 FPS, but within the sort of graph line, oops, sorry, mic bump, I would see a little spike, and it was probably, if I
Right.
had to guess, 90 FPS. It couldn't have been that much, but it was there, and I'm like, oh, this is weird. And I noticed it too, and New World was happening every like 2 seconds. So I was like, okay, I gotta like figure this out. Um, so I reset the BIOS, or yeah, loaded default stuff, and I did a bunch of research into it, and it's probably my RAM or CPU from what I'm gathering because uh I have, because this is where the tech talk comes in.
Hmm.
I have a motherboard, as you do for your computer, and it has four DIMM slots where you put in your
Yes.
RAM sticks. Well,
You don't have 4 sticks of RAM, do you?
I do.
Oh no!
I know. Because I think I originally had two, and I think they were 16 or 8 gig,
Yeah,
for
and
a
you
total
got
of
two more
16.
eight.
And yeah,
Are they at least the same manufacturer?
they are. I bought it
Okay.
from
Yeah, I
a
mean, yeah,
friend.
like, I'm broadly
You know
aware of
where
this
you
whole
know
four
where this
stick
is
thing being
going.
problematic. I don't know the ins and outs, but yeah.
Mm. Well, I learned a lot about RAM in general, but it's just like, so I think my problem is because the RAM is actually, the XMP profile is rated for um 3,737
Okay.
megahertz, right? Which is like, I would like to hit that because uh the way Ryzen works, there's a frequency. This isn't doesn't apply for Intel's isn't like this, but your Infinity Fabric frequency slash Uncore frequency, whatever. For like optimal performance, you want that to match your RAM speed, which your RAM, for simplicity's sake, it's half of what your RAM speed is. So like if I was running at,
Hmm.
let's say 4,000 megahertz for my RAM speed, then my I would want my infinity clock speed to F clock speed to be 2,000. So yeah, I was like really incentivized to run XMP. Well, I did some memory tests and they were failing like within like minutes of the tests. It was like, okay, this is
Mm.
clearly a problem. And I've also like in the past I've had problems with like blue screen and like memory stuff related, even like Tarkov. And so I think at this time I actually wasn't running XP, or maybe I was because I had changed some. Anyways, don't know, but point is, um, I was like, okay, let me try stock. Everything's stock. Let me make sure my RAM
Yeah.
isn't bad. And it passed the hour test, which is like probably could do more extensive, but I'm kind of good with that. And so essentially, what I've learned too is like, so like you have RAM speed, um, which is like affects various stuff, but then you have timings, which also affects various stuff, and how RAM works is like very dumb. I've like basically it there's like a initial core process to like supplying it with energy and like activating it, if you will, and like pre-warming it up, etc. And different sticks at different timings will have better stuff, but a lot of that stuff isn't all that important. There's like the core of it is like storing and then like reading and writing and um management, I guess, like managing the addresses or something, because you have something called banks and bank groups, and then you got ranks, and which is like if a stick of RAM is single rank, then that means one side of it only has DIMMs for storage, I guess, like RAM. Whereas if it's
Yeah.
dual rank, then you have it applied on both sides, which would typically be like a 16 gig stick versus like an 8 gig stick. Um, but if you do have a dual rank, you're like effectively the way the math works is like you're effectively multiplying your banks by 4, I think. So instead of like, I think I'm saying this right, or maybe it's anyways. The dual rank good is all I know, which I have single ranks. And I have 4 of them, which is like not, my board is not actually, some boards, even though they have 4 dim slots, they, the way I forget what the technical term is, but the way the motherboard's set up, there's either like daisy chained or something else. And it's basically just like, did the manufacturer design this board to be more optimized for just 2 sticks in there or all 4 sticks in there, is essentially how it works. And mine is basically optimized for through process. You can't really tell innately, like they're not gonna, there's just, I don't think that information isn't readily accessible, was my understanding.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to infer based off the manufacturer of the motherboards recommended or like compatibility lists with RAMs, because like typically the high fastest ones at the top of the list, they'll either be in dual or all 4 dim slots filled. Mine, of course, were only 2 slots filled, like 4400 megahertz. Some of the RAM sticks I was looking at. So I was like, okay, well, that really sucks, because I bought these off a friend because I was like, oh, more RAM better. I'm going from like 16 to 32. Like this is good. And like I guess it's like just the ever present truth that there's always trade-offs. I just thought this was like a no-brainer free upgrade, but turns out I'm actually losing stuff.
Mm.
But yeah, jumping back to timing, this is where it gets like really bizarre, and why I say it's dumb, as it was described to me via a overclocking enthusiast video, rambling. If you know Bill Zoid I think his YouTube channel is like actually overclocking. It's like just like an hour of rambling, staring at like an Excel sheet or like a motherboard or like a spec sheet of a motherboard, something. Anyways, um, how it works when you set timings is you're basically the RAM doesn't verify, or I should say the memory doesn't like actually verify anything. Like if I say I want every 4 nanoseconds or whatever it is, to send a activate command to bank group A or whatever. Um, this is like when you punch in these numbers and these timings, it's effectively what you're doing is you're saying how long of a
Right.
delay do I want for you to do this command, um, and that will like you set it to 4. Okay, boot PC. You do the stuff. It's going to do that, but whether it fails or not, it doesn't actually verify that. Like it just tries to do it, and if nothing happens, it just
Yeah.
keeps operating as if things are normal. But obviously, things aren't normal because then when you try to like fetch that data, it's
It's
like
not.
not there. Windows is like, and you could potentially corrupt uh window some type of data. I don't know, but it's kind of I was like, wow, this is
Mm.
like you're actually just trying to like because then you get into like tweaking, right? It's like what's the optimal, as you increase um speed of the actual sticks, then you like decrease your timings or rather you have to like increase your timings because again you can't just like do like free things and then technically speaking some timings affect things like copying images,
Right.
versus I don't know, like just moving data around fast. I don't really know, but some of the timings affect things differently. So it's just very like I was kind of like blown away. Like that's how. I mean, this is probably like a very crude explanation from myself, but I was just surprised at how like simple. Like the video I was watching where he was like explaining timings, he basically had like a spreadsheet and on the off to the right he had like TLC for uh TRAS 16 whatever, and so you had kind of these categories filled, and then on the left side where your spreadsheet is, it was like filling out all the commands in like real time, like 1.37 nanoseconds was like a or start at
Mm.
0, and then like A2 was 1.3, and like here's the activate command, here's the pre-charge, here's the so it's like it's basically simulating what's actually happening because that's all you're really doing is when you're messing with those timings or XMP profiles is they're punching in what's the delay on these things, and obviously you could do some catastrophic stuff, if you try to ask
Yeah.
for a command what isn't there. So you really gotta know what you're doing, and that's why a lot of the guys are just like change a few numbers and then run a test and see if it works. It's it's very like I don't know. So RAM has
Yeah.
been kind of a interesting journey. I'm now learning that I'm basically gonna have to run at like the lowest speed I think is 230 or sorry 2300 or something. That's like the default speed, which is like
Right.
really low compared to
Hmm.
3733. But now I'm running at 3000 and I did a test and it went fine. But this really sucks because that means my, F clock or Infinity Fabric speed's at 1500, which is, not where I want to go. So it's like, do I do I try to, you know, see how far I can push this thing? Because then I'm also getting into like all the voltage stuff you can do. It's like, yeah, I can,
Oh, yeah.
apply more voltage, but now everything's running hotter and, that not good. Yeah. And then there's like different materials have like, because the manufacturer, like there was a big thing a few years ago it's probably more than a few years ago, more like 2018, with Samsung B die. And I remember hearing about it. It's like DDR4, you got to get this Samsung B die. It's like God tier. And I'm like, didn't really look into it,
Mm.
just more budget stuff. But now that I have looked into it, it's like they use different dyes, I guess. And those dyes, they're like different qualities and different tiers almost. And like for whatever reason, Samsung's B die, which they don't, I think they discontinue now. They have A die. But anyways, Samsung's B die was like highly rated because it ran better at higher voltages. Like you could run it at 1.5, and I think you would lose a little bit on RAM speed, but you could increase timings, which overall like improve latency. And it's like it was basically rated to run at 1.5 volts, which is kind of the
Right.
limit on these things. Um, Whereas some of the other ones is like, yeah, 1.3 volts is kind of the upper limit. Once you start going past that, you get degradation. And it's just like, and the only way to figure this stuff out is like, you have to like physically see if it's like, people basically like decoded barcodes of, on the RAMs, like physical coding
Mm.
for manufacturers. And just because it's not like, it's not like on an Amazon page what type of die. It's very.
Yeah,
I didn't realize this stuff was like this deep, and now that I know, I'm just like, God, is this like, what am I doing? What am I doing with with
it's
myself? Like,
crazy. It's actually great. I like going to timings is something that's like is like just outside of my knowledge. Like that's like where I get to.
exactly, same here. Yeah.
I'm like on the precipice and being like, I know they exist, but
Mm-hmm.
I've never used them.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like don't understand about them. But yeah, it's interesting hearing what you're saying about how like low level this stuff is, right? And obviously at that point when you're doing things that are super quick, yeah, if you add checks or whatever, it's like slow stuff down, and that's what you end up having in CPUs and
Mm.
whatnot. But at that like low level, yeah, it's just like execute command, that's it, and just move on with your life, right? It's like,
Yeah. That's crazy.
yeah, quite intriguing. I think my stream PC, because I ended up I got some random RAM for the stream PC. It was like the one
Mm-hmm.
extra bit that I had just like lying about, and I think that's like super slow. I think it might just be default speed or something in this one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if it can be any better. Like it doesn't really matter, right? For a stream PC, it's not really a big deal how fast
Yeah.
the RAM is. So I think it might even just be default. But no, it's very interesting. Like, and that's the thing. Like, hear stuff about like 2 slots good, 4 slots bad, and it's like never really
Mm-hmm.
know exactly why, right? You just like hear these things as you like float around the internet. So it's interesting hearing about, yeah, you going around actually like having a look at some of this stuff and like figuring it out.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of interesting, but also just like, yeah, it's like it's the classic, altruism of, you think you're like an expert in something, and then when you actually start learning more about it, you realize how much of an expert you're not. It's like I felt
Yeah,
fairly
yeah.
confident about Rand, like how hard could this timing stuff be, and then just the ever expanding web of information, and how all this stuff works was just like, okay, I know nothing about anything anymore.
Yeah, there's a chart for this, and I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it was just like the sort of you don't know what you don't know when you're like a novice kind of thing, and like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know anything.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I think this one's running at uh, yeah 1066, so double that. It's like what 120? Oh, 132 something else. It's like pretty slow. Or 2133, I think is, yeah, the official rated one. Ban said in the
Hmm.
in the chat. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
So, but this is the old 3700X. But yeah, I think it's like super old RAM, that stuff that I've got in here.
Hmm.
Yeah, just like scalped it from under the system. It was like the only thing that I could like move over. Everything else got changed because it just wasn't fit for purpose. I just couldn't make it work. But they still worked. It's still DDR4. DDR4's been around for a long time. Like I'm probably on the the brink of going up to DDR5 at some point.
I was
So,
I was actually shopping. I'm just like, man, I you know, basically I kind of only want two sticks. I mean, I really
hmm.
do only want two sticks, but I don't want to lose out on 32 gigs. So I was like shopping around and trying to find, you know, then I was like, oh, I kind of want B die because it's like the best, right? It's just, which is like, in reality, it's like more like an extreme overclocker type of thing.
Yeah.
But I still, I've learned all this stuff, damn it. So I'm gonna use, but I can't find no one's selling anymore, except
Hmm.
for like resellers, obviously. And it's like, I don't really want to do that. And it's like $200 is kind of like where you're starting. I'm like, okay, well, at this point, I might as well just jump straight to DDR5 and new
Actually
motherboard.
get
And
something modern.
yeah, so it's like, all right, well, let me just stick with what I got. This doesn't really make that much sense. Um,
Yeah.
but I will say, if you do want some, you know, the prices for DDR4 are very cheap. Some of the products that are being sold, you can get a pretty good bang for buck stuff. I almost was gonna buy one. It was like two 16 gig sticks, so total of 32. I think it was like $60 on sale.
I wouldn't be surprised now because you can imagine with people moving up to DDR5 that there's
Yeah,
a lot of like old, you know, DIMMs coming to the market on
yeah,
DDR5. And there's just so but people have been using it forever, right? It's like
yeah.
only now are people seriously moving up.
Hmm.
So definitely got to be more coming in. A lot of it was made. So I wouldn't be surprised if the prices start to completely collapse. So no, we'll see. We'll see. But talking about upgrades that aren't just going to be a fringe benefit to extreme overclockers,
Mm.
how would you like 37% more FPS in your Escape from Tarkov, Church? How does that sound?
That
And
sounds
not
really
and not
good.
just 37% extra versus any old system. 37% better than a 7800 X3D. How is this possible? Well, I was thinking about this the other day, and I was talking to chat about upgrades, whatever. Right? I've got my beloved 5800 X3D, which is, it's just it's getting like old now, I guess. But it's, I bought it for streets really, and
Hmm.
but like the conversation we were just having, it's like the old guard of DDR4 RAM, right? It's the
Yeah.
M4 socket, so it's the end of the line. Like there's not really anything you can do from there.
Hmm.
Is there like a 5950 XCD? I can't remember. I think there might be, but um,
I think they did do a couple
maybe.
different SKUs, yeah,
I, th-
but
I think there are some other ones. I feel like there are some other ones from memory, and that they weren't actually as good
yeah.
because the 3D cache. Because what makes these things really good is the 3D
Hmm.
cache on the CPUs, right? They've got a way more like L2, I think in particular, it's like level 2 cache on the CPUs than most other chips, and it just is insane for gaming. It's just like crazy. But I think on some of the other ones that are like technically better, they only have like 3D cache on like one set of like the cores or something. So like physically, there's more management because it has to like work out where to put the stuff because it's not like even, right. Whereas on the 5800 XUD, it's like it's all 3D, so it's easier. Kind of always it's a bit sort of a parallel thing to this like four sticks versus two almost, right? There's more management of four sticks, so timings are like more difficult to get right and stuff. Whereas if 3D cache is like not in the not in the not everywhere, then you have to like manage that. It's like more difficult. Yes, is it. Bounce got the info. 7900, 7950 X3D only have 3DB cache on one of the two CCDs. So that's the deal. So it's like it's harder to manage. That being said, the 7800 X3D is still. Sorry, because this is the seven. Yes, because that's when I was looking into the 7800 X3D. So those are 79 and 7950 have got this weirdness. So they actually end up, even though they're like rated better, they actually end up not necessarily being as good for gaming as like 7800 X3D, which is the pretty much just the straight successor to my chip. A lot of people have the 7800 X3D. It's extremely good. It's
Hmm.
mine is like fine, but one of the things that I guess put me off was that new lines are coming out, and I was intrigued the other day about the 9800 X3D, which is just coming out. Like the 9000 series is just starting to come onto the market. People doing benchmarking tests and this kind of stuff. So I watched, I think he's called Pyrology. He does like Tarkov performance videos. This guy, and his video, he actually did a direct Tarkov comparison of these things. Did a bit of a starter, introduction about it, and learn a little bit about these things, why the 9800 X3D is so good. And like I think it almost seems to be like an extra step up as well, because now apparently they've put the 3D cache under the chip.
Oh, interesting.
And so it has better thermals, and apparently it's the first overclockable X3D chip that's ever come to the market. Because 5800 X3D and 1700 X3D, you can't overclock them. I mean, you can't by default. I don't know whether magical tech wizards have been able to do so, but it's really not recommended because they're pretty toasty as far as chips go. Whereas there was this new one, the 9800 X3D, you actually can, which is quite fascinating. So anyway, just like going through the benchmarks, I was like, I wonder whether it's worth it, because like I'm not looking at it right now, but at some point in the future, I'm going to go up to, I've got to do everything new. Right? I've got a new motherboard, DDR5 RAM, and a new CPU. And these things are not cheap. I'm not sure how much they are right now, but they're not inexpensive. The only thing I could take with me is my GPU, really. So it's like a big undertaking. So it's like, well, what's the performance look like? Is it worth it? Is it worth skipping the series and just going straight to the 9000s? And so that's why I was kind of intrigued in this video. And people had mentioned this guy's name before in chat, actually. And I was like, oh, you should go watch his video. But it was actually quite surprising, like the results. Like go watch the thing for the full breakdown, because it is intriguing. But I think he wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was, like the 9800 X3D versus, because as I said, the 7800 X3D is already really, really good. Like it's quite a lot better than the 5800 X3D for EFT at least. But like, for example, so if you're playing, I don't know why people would be, but if you're playing in 1080, the 9800 X3D is genuine, and this is where the number came from on the board here. It's genuinely 37% higher frames than the 7800 X3D. It's like, it's a lot. In 4040p, it was like 33%. In 4K, it's like 30% more frames, which is actually bonkers.
Yeah.
And the 1% lows on this stuff are like considerably better, which is like absolutely mad. Like, yeah, you can see some of the stats on the screen. Like the 1% lows are absolutely insane. I think it was like, and like the difference is it's like 40% improvement on the 1%, or like the on 0.1% lows. It's absolutely crazy. I don't think in 1440p, I don't think the 9800 X3D dipped below, I think maybe it was only on the 0.1% lows or something. It's like even the 1% lows are over 100 FPS.
Yeah,
which is outrageous for Streets.
This is Streets Online, 1440p, 1% lows, or 0.1% is 93 FPS. Like the stutters.
That's the 0.1% low. That's the stutter. The stutter like runs at 93 FPS. Yeah. What the hell, man? It's crazy. It's crazy. And this was done with a 4090, so there's no GPU bottlenecking, but that's what you want to see, right? You want to see the raw power of the CPU coming through. But I mean, they definitely answered the question I had, which was like, oh, I wonder how they're getting on with these new chips. I wonder how good they actually are. Because, I mean, you jump back to 4040p for a second.
Sure. Like Streets Online?
Yeah, Streets Online.
Oh, 1440p, sorry.
Yeah. Because, so that's like, 137, average FPS 137 for the 9800 XCD. 103 for the 7800 X3. It sounds about right, actually, because my average FPS is about 75, 80 with the 5800 X3D. So, that sort of seems about right. But it's quite a big jump, right? It's like, it's actually it's a bigger jump from mine to, I mean, maybe my average FPS is more like 70 then. So it's like basically 30 FPS per series.
Yeah, I mean,
You
dude,
move up.
getting an average FPS of 137 on streets 1440p, like that just sounds like witchcraft to me. Like
Yeah, because I don't
that's
know what like. You probably 100 FPS like scoped in.
oh yeah. But yeah, because oh man, that's yeah. You just reminded me how much Street sucks for sniping because it's like if that's like the if you don't have a good CPU, don't go to Streets with a 6X.
Hmm.
It's like yep, bringing a red dot, which feels really bad on the map with really long sight lines and windows and buildings. But I digress.
Yeah, like you can play it. It's fine. Like, cause mine sort of hovers around in the busy places. It hovers around like the 55-ish if I'm scoped, which is like I can play with it. It's okay. Like, so long as there's no input lag, I'm like not as fussed. Sometimes you get input
Yeah,
lag with this stuff. I feel like Tarkov these days is actually pretty like free from input lag, um, which is all right. So like even though the FPS is eh, it's still kind of like it's still playable, right? It's still fine. Like I'm not going to forgo an LPV. I mean I would have done if I was still on the 3700X because that would have just died and just not had a good time. And I know, yeah, there's definitely people that forgo having a scope on that. And you can play around streets, but it's just very limiting. You can only play it in certain ways
yeah.
if
It's
you don't
just
have an optic,
like
like
for
a
me
scope or something.
personally, if I'm hitting, which I think I do hit about like 45 FPS when scoped, it just like it's kind of like this feels really bad territory. Um, and then like 30 is just like this is unplayable. Like I can't tolerate that. That's just awful. Which I don't think I have an issue, but if someone does, like I feel for you.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean it's interesting. I mean the part of the problem for me is that everything over here for whatever reason is just like 25% to 50% more for no reason at all.
I will say too that is insane on the 4K benchmark for online.
Mm.
Like I mean, you know, I don't know of anyone that's like you know going crazy about 4K stuff, but going from 97 average to 126 on 4K streets online, like that's kind of, I mean, you could spot the little, you know, rat in the bush better with an extra, with all that extra pixels. I mean, that's kind of crazy. Like 120 4K, 120 average FPS on 4K on the streets, like that's kind of
Yeah,
crazy.
that is kind of crazy. I don't know whether I've just been broken by the sheer cost of NVIDIA GPUs these days,
Mm.
but I'm like opening up the pages for these things and going like £490, like doesn't actually sound that bad. I mean, like, have I just been like completely broken by the sheer price of GPUs? Because that was the
Yes.
last upgrade I did, right, to the 4070 Ti Super. That was like, I was choosing between like, am I going to spend over a grand or not? Which is just like eye watering, like, oh my God.
It's crazy.
Whereas I mean, obviously with this, it's not just that, right? It's like, okay, it's 490 for the CPU. I mean, they're actually, yeah, so they're about that. They're like £450 to like about 500 ish. But it's not just that. I got to buy a motherboard. I got to buy a DDR5 RAM.
Yeah, see, that's the
So
thing. Like
the whole
it's
package is
expensive.
probably more like a K.
Yeah, but I
Mm.
mean, that's kind of the nice thing. I guess GPU kind of does this similarly, but I don't know. I've I mean, gosh, how long have I had this system for? I mean, 2019, 2018, something like that. And I've
Mm.
upgraded the CPU like 3 times. Um, and the RAM once, but like, you know, yeah, just that value out of keeping in the family, I guess, so to speak. It feels a lot better than like coming probably a year from now. I'm gonna have to like seriously start considering a new graphics card. I would imagine because I have just the 3070, and
Yeah.
I mean that thing's kind of. I mean it's all right. The 8 gigs sometimes is probably the biggest limiter right now, but as time goes on, eventually that won't be the only limiter. So it's yeah, because I'm definitely not playing at like 1080p on a 1440 monitor. Like
Yeah.
I've tried that once and it looks awful. Like it's just too blurry. It's awful. So I'm gonna have to upgrade. Probably in a year. It's probably gonna there's gonna be some game with some crazy photorealistic, probably Unreal 5.5 engine with some new photo gen simulation,
Yeah.
freaking shader cells compilation on the fly. What other buzzwords help me out? Lumen light
Ray
enhancement.
tracing.
Yeah, ray tracing, ultra realistic 3D fidelity, NVIDIA's new AI generated graphics simulation.
DLSS, LPG, 3D, whatever.
Uh, yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, full system upgrade now is pretty punchy.
Yeah.
Definitely want to do it in parts if you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is the nice thing. I mean, I haven't looked at Intel all that much. I know they're kind of like going through a bit of a rough phase in general.
Boo. Boo.
Team AMD, we hate Intel. I mean, yeah, we hate Intel. We're
I
red
think with the
here.
X3D, in the current state that they're in, I just feel it's difficult to get Intel right now. I mean, to be honest, I actually don't know Intel anywhere near as well either at the minute,
Yeah, me
because they've
neither.
just kind of fallen out of favor, and like, especially because Tarkov is so like AMD 3D cache centric.
Hmm.
It's like obvious when I spend more time playing that than really anything else.
Yeah,
It's definitely interesting. Definitely interesting, all this stuff. I don't know when it's like worth upgrading. Like everything, it's like all playable for now, so it's fine. But like
yeah.
they keep increasing every time they do an update on the map, we could do a rework. It's just like, oh no, now Shoreline's unplayable. Now Woods is harder to play. Now it's like
50%,
Factory is going to be unplayable.
50% more trash on your floors now. Like, oh, my frames. Yeah, I mean, actually, you bring up a good point because customs rework is like, or expansion or whatever it is like.
It's coming.
I mean, it might be next wipe, but yeah, that's
Hmm.
gonna be more frames or less frames, I
Not my
guess.
customs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. For now, yeah. I'm hanging on with
Mm-hmm.
the X3D
Mm-hmm.
1500 X3D. It's good. It's good. I am glad that I got the upgraded GPU though. I do think it was decent, because like one of the reasons why I wanted to do it was because at the time, and this is going to be a good segue. At the time, I was playing GrayZone, and I had 3070, and it was just like not really playable because without a 40 series card, you can't use NVIDIA Frame Gen, which is annoying.
Yes, that is annoying.
And then the VRAM thing
Yeah.
as
Yep.
well,
Because
kind of
that
on
was
top of
like
that.
what 12 you get with that particular model you have.
16.
Oh, 16. That's even better than I thought. Yeah,
Mm. It's
that's
like
really
it's
nice.
the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like literally like min max. I was just like I can just like squeak into the 16 gig model, and then that's it. That's why it's got all the. It's a 4070 Ti and Super. I don't think there's any other GPU that's got all the suffixes. Got all the little notes on it. It's
God.
like it's not quite a 4080, because as I said, those were over £1,000, and I cried, and I was just like, no, I want the 16 gig of VRAM, but I'm not as bothered about the extra 10% of performance. So yeah, no, it's mad. It's mad how much stuff costs these days. Like PCs are expensive, man.
Yeah, which I wish there was maybe one. I mean, I doubt it, but I don't know. It just sucks because I like PC gaming, obviously. Um,
Would quite like to carry on.
I do a little PC gaming, but
Hmm.
I wish it was more like here in the States, especially. Uh, Consoles kind of like more popular, and I believe like in Europe, it's like not as skewed as it is in the States. We have more of a console skew. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's just like they're cheaper and I don't know, easier to produce and etc. Whereas
Mm.
PCs not so much, and then the way like power is gone, like demand for this stuff is kind of Yeah, so I don't know. It sucks. I really like the some of the builds, like people like Linus Tech Tips and some of the other tech tubers will do, where they'll do make like a console killer and they'll get like a small form factor, very tiny
Ah,
box, efficient on heat and all this. I like that type of stuff. The seeing the big giant. I just dropped 4 grand on my computer. Like, okay, yeah, that's cool. I guess, but it's like ain't nobody actually gonna be doing this except for like a handful of people.
yeah,
So I wish I maybe one day. That's why I really hope this will be the last thing we'll move on. I really hope AMD furthers their whole like iGPU stuff where it's like a CPU with like their own little, GPU kind of like it's an all-in-one processor. It's got
right.
graphics processing and computer processing. I don't know. But I don't know if they're actually going to invest in that more, but I think that would be cool because then, hey, don't need to buy a new GPU, possibly. That'd be
Yeah,
cool.
that'd be
And
neat.
should be a little bit cheaper. It probably, ain't going to replace a 3070 Ti. Maybe one day, who knows? But, anyways,
I think half the issue with this stuff, it's a bit like Intel with the Arc ones. It's like
mm,
it sounds great, but then like when you actually put it into practice, like people got to write drivers for this stuff, and it's like there's a certain amount of like catch up to be done.
mm,
It's just difficult. So we'll see,
yeah,
we'll see. But yes, so yeah, talking about GrayZone and that game in particular, and like playing other games is like one of the reasons. Another reason why it's so good having a stream PC. Actually, but you spend like so much time. If I played anything outside of Tarkov, because Tarkov was actually like it was because it was all CPU bound, like almost exclusively. It was actually really easy to stream on one PC. Whereas as soon as I started like not playing just Tarkov, like the odd occasion when I played other stuff, I was like, oh, this is actually really hard to manage because my GPU would actually get utilized by the video game and then go to 100%, and then OBS would stop working.
mm,
Even if you run it in admin mode, and even if you do all the stuff, even if you do all the tricks, like GPU's running at 100%, just like stuff just goes wrong, right? And even things like the NVENC encoder like doesn't it stops receiving because it prioritizes the game over everything else. The NVENC encoder stops receiving instructions, and then the stream starts to lag behind, and then it disconnects, and it's terrible. So having it split up was like way better. It was like one of the other good things that I did around the GrayZone time to try and like fix everything. But GrayZone specifically, they have been chugging away in the background doing stuff. And we mentioned last week that they have got the new update coming on the 27th, which is Night Ops. So I did go away and did have a look through everything and all the things that are out there right now. And it should be kind of interesting. I'm like keen to at least give it a go and see what they've got to offer. So I've got like a list. Where's my list gone? I had like a list of various things that they were talking about because they've done like a whole bunch of stuff, right? They've done like a load of devlogs, and then there was the announcement trailer, and they like talked about various things in there. So yeah, 27th, they do. They're actually going as part of this the Steam Autumn sale. So apparently, the standard edition is going to have 20% off in the autumn sale at some point when that comes through. Because I think they like very briefly mentioned it wasn't on this one, it wasn't on the on this cast, it was on the other one. But you briefly mentioned that like some people obviously refunded the game, right, because of like performance they couldn't actually play.
sure, yeah,
And so I think the idea was like, oh, we'll bring some of those people back, put a bit of discount on it, whatever. Um, so it's going to be on sale at some point soon, and apparently it'll be the cheapest that the game is ever going to be. It's going to be more expensive next year. When we get in, now's the time. That was kind of the angle. But yeah, they're gonna wipe it. They've got like AI improvements, visibility and stuff. They've been working on optimization a lot. They've got like 7 people just doing optimization for the
that's
game,
good.
which is good because that's really important. Because it was one of the things that was like bad, like
Yeah,
very bad. As I said, like with my old system, 5800 XVD and a 3070, I just couldn't really play it right. Like it was just
yeah,
not. It wasn't really doable. I think I scraped 60 FPS with like all DLSS on, and as soon as I went use the scope, it was like 40, 35 FPS. It's just like not doable. So apparently been working on that a lot. Or some of the other problems. They got some AI improvements. I know people complained before about how aimbot it was in some of the areas. So hopefully that's gonna be a bit better. They've definitely improved like helis for sure, because they used to always appear, it's like the three-way map thing. So
Mm-hmm.
you were part of a faction that's in like one corner of each triangle around the map. And your helos would always like fly from kind of like the supply area, right, which is like off the map behind your faction. Whereas now apparently they'll just like turn up from the side of the map. Like it doesn't matter, right? Like you don't even see it, so it's kind of whatever. So now they'll just like fly in from wherever. So if you're like halfway across the map, you don't have to wait for it to come all across the map. And I think in the past, I think they already sped the helis up. I don't think that's necessarily part of this one, but I think they already sped them up like previously to make them quicker. Ever since I know, because it's funny because they have done 2 patches and like 4 hot fixes or something, I think, but like no one's been playing the game because we tried it and then it was okay, and then we left them to get on with it, and people have gone off to do other stuff, understandably. There's like a couple of people who've kind of just like mainlined this thing for like months because they're like really into it, but that's a very, very small number of people.
Yeah.
So everybody else is just kind of like letting them cook, right? Like the actual in its actual real form. So that should be pretty good. And then another thing for helis that they're bringing in is, do you remember how like awful it was when you were just like, as soon as you got an active headset and you get onto a chopper and it's like just unbearably loud the whole time.
It's been a while,
Yeah,
but
it
yeah.
was super
Oh, I
loud,
do
believe
remember.
me.
Yeah, because you would turn
Yeah, and
down.
you're in the head and you can't even hear the other person when
Yeah.
they're on VoIP or whatever. It was bad. Well, you can
Realism.
actually, yeah, exactly.
Have your ears
You
bleeding.
can now you can turn your active headset off, so it'll like not just like deafen you. You won't
We're
have
not
to
gonna.
have a mixer to play the game.
Yeah, we're not gonna lower the volume. We're not gonna have anything like that. But in game, you can turn it off. I guess it's like
Yeah,
effectively a volume knob. That's funny.
basically. Yeah. Um, I've just got like a bunch of random stuff. It's not really in any particular order, but they've got like some hidden quests that they're bringing in. This is quite cool. So they've got like how someone else died. So if you like go to them, you'll basically see like a health screen, like your health screen. You know, when you die, you'll
Hmm.
see like that on them. So you can see where they got shot and see like how they died and like why they died. It's kind of interesting. So if you like kill an AI, you can like, they took like 6 hits. You can be like, oh, I see why. Because like I hit them here and then there or whatever, which is like kind of neat. I don't know how much information you get fully, but that'll be kind of cool. They're adding in like durability, so that's coming in the next patch. And then there's like a bunch of weapons they've got. Actually, this ended up me doing a little bit of research.
I forgot I was sharing my screen. I'm sitting here like playing with the Steam charts
Oh,
sliders. Anyways,
I thought you were just showing the player like audience and stuff. I thought it was like fully intentional.
I went to go check real quick. I was like, oh yeah, let me go check what Geek is talking about. Anyways,
Yeah, yeah.
sorry, carry on.
But yeah, so adding like a couple of new guns. So they're adding the MP5, the 1911 pistol, the AK-74U, and then they're adding all the Ratnik AKs. So I actually had to go and look these up. So we have one in Tarkov, the AK-12, but they're adding the AK-12, the AK-15, the AK-19, and the AK-308, which I didn't even know existed. So I had to look these up because, like, as not a gun person, as I said before many times, if it hasn't been in a game that I've played, I won't know what it is until it comes to a game that I have played. So the AK-12 is, as we know it, the 545 version. The AK-15 is like the AK-12, but kind of like the AK-12 and the AK-103 had a like crazy love child, and it's like a modernized AK in 7.62 by 39.
Okay.
And then the AK-19 seems to be like the AK-12 version of the AK-101. So it's like the export
Okay.
version in
Yeah.
5.56.
Yeah, gotcha.
And then the AK-308 looks like Brandon Herrera made it. Pretty much. It fires NATO, 7.62 by 51 out of an AK, which is like kind of wild.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I was like, I didn't even know. Like, why don't we have these in Tarkov? That'd be sick. But I don't know. Anyway, they're coming to GrayZone, so that'd be kind of cool. I didn't even know the AK-38 existed.
Me neither.
Yeah, it's like apparently random places around the world who are just like, hey, maybe this would be cool, and like ask Kalashnikov to like make them.
So it
So
is
I
like an
like
official
it's the
question.
actual thing. It
Okay.
exists.
I thought maybe
Yeah.
it was like some other like company, made an AK that shoots 308s, you know what I mean? But
No.
it's actually Kalashnikov.
They actually went and did it, which is it's mad. So those are coming. So I'm actually kind of intrigued to see what those are like. It'll be kind of fun. They made 9mm pistols and shotguns better. So early game, against people with no armor might be quite good. Start of
Better.
town or whatever.
One of my gripes was like pistols. I'm just curious if they specifically call this out. Was that like with pistols, they ADS slow and like they just felt, it felt like I wasn't really using a pistol versus like
Mm,
a rifle. Like recoil was kind of, high, but like mainly it was like, where's the trade offs? When I recognize I'm
yeah.
losing a lot of stuff, but is there any gains here?
Yeah, it doesn't say specifically, but like I know
Okay.
what you mean, right? Because like in EFT, it's like again you lose a lot of stuff, but at least the things like damn instant
Yeah,
ADS,
it's snappy,
you know,
yeah.
yeah. So maybe hopefully that would be good.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think this is anything too crazy. They like add more POIs, like environmental points. I don't think it's like because there's like camps coming later on, so it's nothing like that. I think it's just like more stuff. There was like a little trailer at one point which was I don't know, like little stone wall thing with like some stuff inside or whatever. It's like it seems like just more things in the world. It's probably not game changing, but it's just like fleshes stuff out a little bit.
Yeah, that's good.
But high value loot, which is important actually. So
Yes.
there will be things. It won't just be bandages and drinks. You'll be able to like take stuff. Which and the thing is, I what I feel about that is that the difference between just like wandering around knowing that there's nothing really useful there and you have to go to the military crates in like a specific place versus knowing there could be something interesting and you're like feel incentivized to engage with the world a bit. Whereas
Yeah.
before you just didn't care really about any of the stuff. It's like every room is barren and empty of anything. So what's the point? Whereas if you're looking around, I mean, Tarkov's sort of like that, but almost in a more obnoxious way. You're just like nose pressed into stuff looking for the little perception dot because things are like Bitcoin hidden on the floor of a box underneath the actual model and all of this kind of stuff. So hopefully we don't have to do that. But yeah, it's don't know. It means that you actually want to pay attention to. Oh, I'm actually in maybe I'm in an office or maybe I'm in here or like the mayor's house or whatever. Maybe there's gonna be high value stuff around the map. But it'll bring us more into the world, I think, which would be quite good. It's like a bunch of quality of life stuff, like looting bags that are on the floor, toggle leaning, diagonal sprinting. There's like loads of just like really annoying stuff previously that you would expect to be in the game, isn't, and then you're just like, oh, this feels just annoying to play. Like as soon as you strafe and like running at full speed forwards, it was just like stop you from sprinting as soon as you strafed at the same time, and it just felt bad. So they're changing that and like being able to carry a weapon without mag in. I remember that being a thing as well. It's just like as soon as you take the mag in, like the gun went red. And it's like, no, you can't hold this anymore. Completely impossible. So there's like a bunch of that stuff. Faction patches, apparently, for PMCs. You'll be able to kind of know who's who when you're looking through optic or whatever. You can like target ID a bit better. Cheats, like cheat reporting thing and like shared waypoints for squads. So it's like, yeah, it's quite a lot, which is nice. Oh, and I, I literally missed out like the most important one, which is it's night ops. So there's like it's a full day night cycle.
That's cool.
So there's no times like in EFT. So you just have to deal with it, right? It's like sometimes it's just night and you've got NVGs and like lasers and flashlights and whatever. So that's obviously like the big thing. For me, it's weird because like I don't like doing night raids really. So
Yeah.
I'm sort of like
Yeah.
I'm looking at all the other stuff and thinking like, is this going to like change the game? Because just the fact that you're like raiding at night doesn't necessarily make the game better. It just makes the game different. And if it's still like kind of dull, then it's like another flavor of the same kind of boring, if you know what I mean. So that's why like the most important thing for me about this is just looking through and being like, is there anything that's actually changing like the fundamental game loop of this stuff? Like, high value loot a little bit. Like, there's like certain things that like maybe, they change things a little
Yeah.
bit. But I still think it's probably too early to get like really excited based on this, because I went back and looked, because we looked at the roadmap like 6 months ago when they first released it, whenever it was, like 4 months ago, and so each update's coming every 6 months, and it's not really until even the next patch actually, which looks like, I can't remember the name of it, but the next one looks like it's more like it's like weather and then some story and like lore stuff.
Hmm.
And apparently, there was like a Reddit recap that I read where somebody who said, "Oh, apparently there's also a secret thing that they haven't told anybody about, some secret update." So like maybe that's something cool. But the one after that is the one with the camps, you know, which is the one that I actually think will be good, because that's the one with like, it's like fobs where you have to capture them. And when you capture them, you get access to new LZs and like some trader stuff and like maybe missions and whatever. But like they could be recaptured by the other factions. So is that kind of thing, like territory capture, I think would
Yeah.
be awesome. That like incentivizes people to go out and like take bases from other people, which would be cool. It'd be like a land control kind of thing. That'd be really good for PvP. I think that would be really sick. So I'm looking forward to that. But like, as far as I can tell, it's going to be a year from now before
Yeah.
we get any of that stuff. And until then, we might. Well, I mean, I'm happy to be wrong, right? But like, I think we're going to be in let them cook mode until the end of 2025. I think.
Yeah.
So
If my
we'll see.
memory's correct, that was sort of my feelings. Is like, this isn't what I've played so far. Hasn't really been much, which is fine. This is kind of like an early, almost a proof of concept, but even then, not really. It's kind of more like a tech demo.
Almost.
Yeah, because it's like it's not even really feature complete, and there's like all these milestones they got to hit. So I think I said something like, "Let this, in 2 years, I'll be interested to see where it's at." Um, which, yeah, it's like probably 1/4 of the way there already, or 1/3. So, um, yeah, it could be
Yeah.
something. If you really like this game in particular, I think, yeah, try it out your heart's content. But for me personally, I just gotta see. I want to see. I don't want to like keep going back to it and just being like, oh, they haven't
Mm.
fixed the other. They improved 10% of the game, but the other 90% that I had an issue with hasn't changed, and just it's gonna like sour my overall feelings of the game. So I'd rather wait till it gets a little bit more like, hey, we have a pretty solid. Like I could see the base capturing stuff, and then like with the
Mm.
weather, so I think the weather and day night cycle like has a lot of potential. Even though it's kind of a small thing, it's not like a grand aspect, but it's kind of like the Helldivers experience where you have to deal with the weather, whatever
Yeah.
the conditions are, and that could be interesting. If you probably optimally you want like the best NVGs, and if those are like gated and like more riskier areas, center the map stuff. That could be very interesting. Or you have to sort of, it's getting dusk soon. I need to go loot a flashlight from the cabinet, and then you get to play with the nighttime. I can see weather, like rain, maybe vision's a little messed up. Press F to wipe goggles, whatever.
Press F to use Clin.
Yeah. You loot a ball cap, and now suddenly you're getting less rain in your eyes. Vision's a little clearer. Like, I don't know. There could be some stuff there though that curious to see what they could do, and some of that can help. Sort of like elevate the day to day gameplay,
Mm.
and kind of like enhance things.
I feel like it's kind of the right way around in some ways, though, because as you said, like those things don't make the game on their own. But if you
Yeah.
then bring in the fob capture type gameplay, and that's actually really it turns out to be a driving force. However they do it, a
Mm-hmm.
driving force behind people actually wanting to play. And you've got the weather, and you've got the night stuff. It's like, oh, that now it's actually kind of cool because like that then it enriches the experience. That's
Exactly.
kind of like flavoring in the cake, but like
Mm-hmm.
we're
It's
just
not what
tasting
makes the
flavoring.
cake.
Yeah, we need them to make the cake really over the
Mm-hmm.
next like year or so. So I don't know. No, because I was looking at a few other games as well, and it's just like it's certainly possible, and that's why I'm keeping it on my radar. I'm just like interested to see it because I like this more than a lot of the other games. It just suits my style more. It's like better suited for yeah, you can play as a team, that's fine, but it's like it's more solo sort of friendly in the same way that Tarkov is versus like Delta Force or ABI or those types of games. So it kind of intrigues me a bit more, and it's a bit more like open-ended as well, which also kind of appeals to me. Um, but yeah, they've just got to like find, and I don't know if they know. This is the thing, like we don't actually know whether they know what they're going to do. So we don't know if they actually know what the game loop is going to be. Like, do they have a great idea for that yet, or are they still just kind of like working it out? Like, we will never know because they'll obviously never tell us until they do it. But that's the thing. Like, it's not going to be like a mega hundreds of hours game for me until you get to that point where it's like the gameplay almost has to be self-sustaining, you know, like you have to be able to just play it
Yeah.
like for its own sake, and then obviously you want other stuff to do as well, but like you could play Tarkov for its own sake without the questing or whatever, but you do the other stuff as well because it's like, oh, that's like extra good, or like, oh, there's a zombies event, oh, that's like extra incentive to play, that's like super cool. Whereas but the game needs to be kind of like playable on its own first. It's like yeah, Helldivers is like playable on its own, and then there's all the other stuff you have to contend with, and then there's
Right.
unlocks
Right.
and this, that, and the other. So it's like lots of driving forces to make you want to play. Whereas like just being able to raid at night in the GrayZone world is like, oh, that's not really enough on its own
Mm-hmm.
to make me want to sink a ton of time into it. But like I'm gonna be happy to check it out for sure.
I will say one thing that occurred to me was like you were talking was with the factions, and they kind of have, you were saying how it's kind of like a more solo friendly because you can just go in, but you got like a team, and
Mm.
it has a sort of baked in social element because I was playing
Yeah.
New World a bit, um, not recently, but not too long ago, and someone that I met through my faction, was like, yeah, I like MMOs for the social element. I was like, oh yeah, thinking about GrayZone, that's kind of a similar aspect. You might make, through natural gameplay, new friends, and kind of have like this social pull towards, your faction, your team. I gotta log in because my faction. We gotta go capture the fob tonight. Otherwise, we won't get the 10% XP bonus, and they're counting on me. Booty Slayer
Yeah.
69 said he really needed me to log on tonight.
Yeah, exactly. And like it can obviously go the wrong way, like with you felt like
Mm,
letting everybody down, leaving or whatever, but like that,
yeah.
those kind of mechanics, they if they can do it in a good way, that it will feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself, and that kind of thing is always good. The Helldivers thing is genius, having like these community goals to take certain places or whatever, and
Mm.
it creates this ongoing narrative. Like it's very fun in that way. Yeah, because like I think they're adding like a faction chat as well, so like you can speak amongst
Oh, that's cool.
people within your faction, and like because you automatically kind of group together because you can see on the chat on the map like who's on your team, so you already kind of know what your people are doing. Like I remember back on the original one as well, you'd like see somebody in a certain area and just like message them like, yo, no, what's going on, any enemies, whatever, and like people would like chat back and forth, and it's quite a nice way to like meet. It's actually quite a good way to meet people, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Like
And then,
it's probably the most like friendly that I've seen out of any game so far.
yeah, which would be great for onboarding new players because, in a
Mm,
sense, if you have a strong community like that, then I'm sure people would be happy to, you know, there's going to be people that like helping new players. So if you have easy
yeah.
tools for them to be able to communicate, then yeah, it's kind of a win win. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's
so
definitely the biggest thing for me is how will the social, because there's a lot you could do there, like
mm,
if you could change factions in between. My friend was telling me when the New World first came out, they they went really hard into it and they got like really involved and they were like kind of high ranking up within their particular company or faction or whatever.
yeah.
And one of the things they did is they had a person go be a spy for this other,
Mm,
larger enemy faction. And they went and they were so integrated that they were having like moral, personal conflicts because they were like, man, I really like these people and they really like me, but like, like they made real social bonds, but like secretly what they were
wow.
doing, they were like siphoning off money from the treasury towards the company. But like
That's crazy.
this is like some crazy big, thing, social element, kind of like devoid of any game. I mean, I guess there's a little game mechanic interaction, but largely it's just humans being humans, right? You know,
Yeah.
it's like you just give them the tools, and then the gameplay kind of writes itself. But like, because that's kind of
Yeah,
like a
give
crazy
humans the tools and
story.
we'll deceive each other and cheat and steal. That's the moral of the story here.
Yeah, that went on.
Give
Apparently,
us
that
the
went on
tools
for
and
a
we'll take the
while
forces. Hmm.
before
What happened?
before
Did they come clean or like get
well
found
they
out or like
I
what happened?
I think how the story goes is they did like a big reveal, and
Hmm.
because I guess there's like some war going on, and then they were all
Right.
lining up, and because people were handing out potions and stuff, and then yeah, he just kind of was like, guys, I've been, you know, I'm actually I've been working for this other company. I can't remember the context, but yeah, they kind of just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
threw it out there, and because I think they had got most. I don't know. I don't know why that happened. Maybe they
Yeah, yeah.
maybe they had to hang it up because their conscience was really getting to them.
It's funny that though, like, just the moral thing about yeah, it's a game, but because you're like in a social group with these people, it's like you actually make a real bond. Like that's nuts,
Yeah,
right? Like feel
yeah.
guilty about cheating these people you actually end up like knowing
Hmm.
and liking. Hmm. It's interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, if they do any of that, I don't think they have to go to that extreme. But anything with this, for me, the social side can really, it can elevate it. Of course, there's drawbacks, as is all things. There's a trade off to be made, but
Yeah.
we'll see. I'm curious to see what they do. Um, do we have time for Meme or Meta
Oh
MPX
gosh,
edition?
we completely forgot about the MPX edition of Meme or Meta. Uh, should we do it next week? Maybe we just do
We
it
could
next
always do it
week.
next week. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Should we do it next week? I feel like if we open that can of worms,
yeah,
that's going to be the end,
yeah,
or at least the end will not be inside for a while.
yeah. And I would hate to, do a very lackluster Meme or Meta because
Yeah,
it's
we'll give
it's
it.
a very serious debate, Giga. Like
It's very serious.
the, the people demand.
The people demand the proper debate on the MPX. You know what? There was nothing more divisive than releasing a top five SMGs. People
Mm,
liked the assault rifles one. People were people were angry about the SMGs one. There was
really?
many people who felt very very sad about various guns.
Well, now I'm curious. What
It,
was your top five, Giga?
my top five, well, the MPX was in there. I had the
Okay,
two vectors, the MPX, the P90, and what was the last one that I put in there? And the MP7.
let me
That was my top
guess.
five.
Clan users were coming at your throat.
There were a couple of clean users,
Yeah.
but the number one gang of people who were a large group was the MP9 crew.
Oh, interesting. That's not what
Yeah,
I was expecting. But you know what? I do kind of feel like they're a bit of a minority. They often get overlooked, the MP9ers.
yeah, the MP9ers, and they love their MP9,
Yeah, no,
and
I totally can
they
see
wouldn't
that.
hear nothing said about against it. Church, this is it. But like, I kind of tried to be because you can cut these things a million ways. Remember when we were trying to do the like four grips tier list? You end up in like weird situation where
Yeah.
like one's bad value for money, so something that's like strictly better than something else on stats ends up like lower than something else. It's just like really, if you try and cut it too many ways, it's awful. And so I was like, look, we're just gonna do like best of the best.
Hmm.
So it's like, you know,
Oh,
we talk about like the
interesting.
SR2M as well. It's like, money's no object. Like, what's just objectively the best of these things? Because some people mentioned a certain one. I can't remember. Yeah, it was like some people mentioned SR2M.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was MP9. There was like a couple of ones that people were talking about. Um, and I was just kind of like, yes, but like, why would you pick that over the others? Like,
Yeah,
the budget angle, that's fine. That makes sense. I get it.
totally.
But
Yeah.
like, that's not what this is about here. That's why the Keto ended up not being in there because it's like it's really cheap. I get it. Like bang for buck, it's insane. But but I don't know. Like it's just why would you take this over the other thing? Because like the the main theme of the whole situation is like P90 Big Mag, MPX Big Mag, 9mm Vector Big Mag,
Mm-hmm.
MP7 pretty decent mag, but
Yeah.
the MP7 it just rips anyway as a gun, and then 45 Vector, which is like tiny mag, but it's just insane for TTK,
Yeah.
and then all the drop off stuff we talked about. So it's like you like it's hard to pick something with 30 rounders. Out of any of these things, it's like the other ones just have way more bullets, and the 45 Vector hits like an absolute truck for an SMG. And it's just tricky to like fit it in there. So that was the thing. But like I can see why people like them. I can see why people like them.
Yeah. And there's a lot I feel like assault rifles are a bit more like there's a lot of AKs and they all kind of do the same thing, it feels like.
Mm.
Whereas SMGs, like in comparison to assault rifles, they feels like there's a lot more of a gradient than the gradient's longer or wider than what the assault rifles do. Assault rifle feels
Yeah.
like it's very like, there's like a category within a category. You got big caliber, and it's like, oh, bigger caliber, then you got like high rate of fire, M4s type of stuff,
Mm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Where'd you, just out of curiosity, it was MPX number 5, I'm guessing?
I put P90 number 5.
Oh,
I,
really?
I actually
Okay.
I struggle with P90, even though like I know on paper it was like I kind of ended up with it in the list, even though I had a really bad time with it actually.
Mm.
But I was like, this should be good on paper, and like it's partly a skill issue and just some unlucky moments. Like I had one where I had this guy like I was like I wasn't completely on top of it, but I was like on the stupid rock, kind of beachside on Lighthouse, like not right at the top, like a lot just along the mountain range somewhere, and they were just like running along the beach kind of thing, like coming away from Merin, and I was just like, and the guy was just like stopped, turned, and shot me in the head with M62, and I hit him 17
Oh, yeah, it
times
does feel really
with the
bad.
P90, and he was just like, I'm just gonna vomit off the side of the stupid rock because this is like why it was just it was just unfortunate, right? But like it is a problem. My SS190 is just not that great. It's like a
Yeah.
37 pen or something. It's like it's weak compared to the others, and like you can easily get one or two bounces if they're wearing a class 4 helmet, and that doesn't really happen if you're using an MP7. It's like the damage is kind of low. The MP7 won't kill them, but it'll pen at least, and that causes them their own issues. So yeah, so I put that one in last, of the top of the 5.
Mm-hmm,
That
mm-hmm.
is. So I think I went like how did I go? I think I went P90, MPX, 9mm Vector, MP7,
MP7. Yeah.
45 Vector. I think that was the order.
Yeah.
I think. But MPX was good. MPX and 9mm Vector were like close. I actually don't really like the 9mm Vector that much, but it's like it is arguably better, I think, because of the big mags and the fast fire. It is good, but the MPX is like very controllable. You
Yeah,
do have to hit them
it's
in the head. You really
tough.
do.
Yeah, I really want to like the MPX more, but it just feels like I think it's really cool because you can basically make like a pseudo assault rifle, do like the
Mm.
really long handguard, really long barrel. I kind of like that. Um, but yeah, it does feel kind of, I don't know. It's I'm not really sure where it sits nowadays because the SMG stack has gotten really diverse and more competitive, I would say. Um,
Yeah,
like,
and
would
they
you just be
got
better
hit the most
off?
by the armor changes.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true.
So
Uh,
people typically are like, it's hard to run an SMG now.
yeah,
Like they work in arena, but you're so close in arena that it's more
right,
balanced.
right. Yeah,
Whereas in
that's true.
EFT, you know, you're not unless you're doing something kind of funky, you're not really running SMGs with a LPVO,
Yeah,
like or like an
I
MP7
don't.
with an LCAM, like P90 with an LCAM. It's just like people just like you can do it, but
Yeah, I mean P90 with an Elcan, I feel like isn't
P90 with an LCAM and long barrel,
crazy.
that's like maybe okay. But the problem, yeah, MP7's got like crappy MOA anyway.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's either like slow bullets or
right, right.
like damage or whatever. So like some combination of stuff that makes it not really work very well, and then it means it's very specific. You have to be in a very specific situation. In arena, it's great, but in
Yeah.
normal Tarkov, again, it's like the streets thing. It's just like I'm on streets with a SR2M. Like, oh, there's a man up in that window. Okay, I just can't fight him,
Yeah.
and he's
But
got an SR25 with M62. And it's just
yeah.
difficult.
But I think that is kind of the appeal of the SMGs. Maybe not the tricked out MPX necessarily, but you can
Mm.
like the Clin especially, right? It's just like this is my questing gun. I'm gonna grab a Clin. I'm gonna go in, run into the middle of resort. Care for nothing. Like audio, what's audio even
Mm.
about? I just run, and then you grab the item.
Headset off.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
no fear.
Yeah. Which and you just like you don't even care about your ammo because it's like just basically the cheapest thing on the market. I mean, sometimes you put a little bit. Maybe you have like a kill mag. The first mag has got the big boy rounds, and then everything else is just like
Yeah, whatever it's called,
green
PSTM
tracer.
or something. I can't remember.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the rest of
like,
it's just like P, PMP,
yeah,
and it's like
exactly.
58 rubles a bullet kind of deal.
Yeah.
Maybe even less. Yeah. No, all good, all good. So yes, how's Deadlock been outside of the Tarkov world?
Deadlock. It's been good. I've been trying to get into it more in between troubleshooting PC stuff, but it's been good. I mean, I do think it's a very interesting game. The player base has like started to teeter off. It's more like 40,000 versus like 100,000 it was like maybe a
Hmm.
month and a half ago. Um,
Yeah.
which for me isn't real. I don't like one of the things I was kind of having issues with is it felt like my games, the skill dispersion was kind of, it felt like very, like a bit too wide. It felt like
Right.
there was people who were like clearly like still learning the basics of the game, and then like, you know, people around my level, right? And it's not like,
Hmm.
my level's even anything good. It's like got to be something low. But yeah, that made the games really hard because um, if you didn't have good macro as like a whole as a team, then you just kind of auto lose. It felt like
Mm.
your lanes wouldn't be pushed, but your team is like 4v5ing the enemy team at their tower, but all of your lanes are pushed in. So it's like, guys, this is a really bad thing. We shouldn't be. Okay, now the other teammate's going to fight. All right, I guess I'm coming to fight. Then let's go. It's just like feels really bad. Or like even worse, I've been playing a lot more support type archetypes characters, which
Right.
is like you build around healing and like enabling your team. But if my lanes are pushed in, then it's like I have a dilemma. Do I, be the one that's supposed like be the one that farms the wave? That way they're not getting like free tower damage. Like the
Mm.
carry archetype should have been doing this, but they're not. They're fighting. So
Yeah.
it's like I'm in this really position where I do not, it feels like a lose lose situation. Which I've since then decided I'm just gonna try support later and try to grind out some MMR. But that being said, they did a patch yesterday, and because previously they had ranked mode, but it was only for like a 5 hour window every day or something.
Oh.
Yeah. Um, and then they had normals, and then Hero Labs, which was also like a very small window. But what they did now is they just said, you know what, screw it, we're gonna, instead of these separate, windows and everything, we're just gonna make it's now just ranked. Everything's ranked, and which like kind of make like to me kind of makes sense because even when you're playing unranked, casuals,
You still
you
get
you
like an MMR, right?
yeah, you're still ranked. So like it's just
You
like
just don't
you
see it.
right. I mean, it's not yeah. So um, which I so like me personally, I'm like totally okay with. I know some people are not, and plus two, now that the player base is kind of like shrunken down, um, that also helps with like matching and quality of matches. Because if you're like super try hard, you're not really incentivized to play outside of ranked hours.
Yeah.
So it's like that makes it kind of awkward. So they've like done away with all that now, which I'm kind of excited about because now I don't also have to worry about, you know, feeling hyper confident in my own ability to play ranked. Now it's just like whatever I play is now the thing. So and now party queue is now a thing for because it's like there is there's no two different queues. It's one rank. So now you just play with you can play with people, and now you're gaining rank as well. So I think that's an
That's cool.
improvement. You also don't like they had this thing where you had to play like 11 matches during the week, and that would qualify you to get a rank update, which would come every week.
Right.
And what happened too is people would play their matches and then they wouldn't play anymore because like, well, I don't want to risk it, so to speak. If I had like a good run out of my 11 matches, like why play? So I don't know. They're like doing different stuff, which is really cool. Um, and they're figuring it out. But I think this update in particular is going to be nice because it's kind of like more uniformed. Um, and the way the player base is kind of going because some of the higher MMRs, of course, their queue times are very long, but now things overall, to me, my perspective, I think it's gonna be much better. And they did some pretty significant economy changes because it's a little bit death bally previously. Like
Mm.
20 minutes, it was like non-stop team fighting and like you know, um, whereas now it's like they slow down the game a little bit. Um, Towers are much more defendable than before, um, and I think it's going to be pretty good. And they've also like there was this weird thing about healing and sustain where there is a lot of like ways to sustain your stuff, like through either abilities or healing items or lifesteal items, what have you. And it was like some characters, there was an item called Healing Booster that would boost your healing by like 25%. It's like any healing you receive, it
Yeah.
gets boosted by 25%. And also, there's anti heal items which like reduce the healing they receive. So there was like you know, but this healing booster would like reduce the effect of that. So, anyways, there was like a few heroes where like because they had a heal in their kit, they would buy a bunch of healing items and healing burst booster and like lifesteal, and it's like they're the raid boss now. And like if no one on your team has anti heal, you just like you can't kill him, and it's like I don't want to build like toxic bullets. I'm not my I'm supposed to like cast an ultimate. I don't want to just sit here and apply anti heal. So they've
Debuffs,
like
yeah.
yeah they've like reduced that down a bit, which I'm very pleased about because it was pretty extreme how it just felt like people just didn't die sometimes and certain characters were more prone to that. So yeah, otherwise very like um like a little bit of a hype. It's not like a massive update, but it's kind of a big change to like the because there's been a lot of like reactions from people from like the rank changes because there was also
Mm.
I don't know. Because now you have like a core rank and then hero rank, which is also interesting. So we'll see how it plays out. I'm kind of optimistic though. I think this should overall be a net positive. Because kind of like we've talked about in Tarkov, you previously you were like split into player base, quote unquote. During like rank hours. If you queued
Yeah.
casual, that wasn't someone queuing rank. So I like this so much better. But of course, they're going to change it, depending on player feedback and whatever they do. So it's been good.
Yeah. I haven't played any since we talked last time at all. To be honest, I've hardly played any actual Dota, which is more likely what we're
Oh,
gonna
really?
end up playing. But yeah, it's just been busy time.
Yeah.
Been a busy time. Which is a good, as I said, a good time to be busy. We've been doing all sorts of stuff with the family, like looking at schools or whatever. Like I had to take like random
Mm.
time off to go do like all that kind of stuff, and then I was away and whatnot. So, as I said right at the start, good time to do it when it's been
Yeah.
a bit quiet. You know,
Yeah.
if you can't get the downtime now, then when can you? You know. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if we'll ever come back to it. Honestly, we're part of that 60,000 that disappeared. You know, like played a bit and then didn't play afterwards.
Yeah.
So I think it just comes back to like do I want to go and like watch a bunch of guides and
For sure.
start like theory
Yeah.
crafting and like follow every patch note and whatever. So
Yeah. No, I totally get
not
that.
sure. Mm.
Yeah. I'm really curious to see how it does once they're ready to like push it to, the public, I guess, because right now it's like, I guess it's like a closed beta. I'm not really sure what you would even call it necessarily, but they're changing it. So it's like every 2 weeks, it's like the meta game, the macro game changes, like drastically almost. Something, not always, but like this one specifically. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just like they added like 3 new items, and like one of them is just like bonkers right now, I'm pretty sure. So it's just, but I like it, and I'm more so just curious how how the market's going to, because it is that weird, it's like you gotta have the macro of like a MOBA. That's like one
Mm.
skill, to pull onto, and then you got third person shooting mechanics and just your general mechanics, and you know, that I think there is some appeal there to like Overwatch players, but like, what about the MOBA side? It's like, yeah, I don't know. That part's interesting to me. I'm not sure if there's a market, but I do like the game. I think it's fun
I can see
little
that.
twist to the formula.
I can see that.
But until then, we'll carry on with what Tarkov has for us here in the coming months. Nikita, please.
Yes, and I will. I will be. So apparently, I was just like reading through, make sure I don't like mess this up. But
Mm-hmm.
apparently, some creators will be playing the GrayZone Night Ops thing before the official launch on the 27th. So people will be playing on from the 24th. So it's like 3 days of like preview on stream for some people who I think it's because they want to do, I think the kind of like create a private service again. So people kind of like all get together and like
Gotcha.
play together before they launch publicly, and like also just tie up any last like bugs or whatever before they release it. So I don't know whether I'm going to stream it on Sunday or whatever, but I might.
Yeah. Is it
At
just
least maybe I
those?
will do Monday.
It's just those the weekend and Monday.
Well, yeah, it's like 24th, 25th, 26th, and it's going to launch on Wednesday.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
it's a couple of days beforehand. But yeah, so we'll see. Maybe next week I'll get on that. I don't know. Maybe I won't do it the weekend, but maybe I'll jump on it on Monday or something. Just have to see.
All right. Well, with
Something
that, we'll
different.
wrap it up. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week.
Catch you later.